I'm here with Ricki Lake and Abby Epstein. G'day, you two.
G'day, mate.
G'day.
We got Abby, who's apparently in New York, but looks like she's in the Bahamas.
That spray tan is working, honey.
Spray tan.
Incredible. I've just been talking off air with Ricki and Abby about their movie, The Business of Being Born, which is the first thing that our doula, Rebecca Richter, got us to watch as soon as we found out we were pregnant, and how incredible it was to watch that movie and then go, yes, definitely home birth was the right choice. And we gave birth in our in our bedroom, in a pool, with my 2-year-old son in the next room, who didn't wake up at all, even through, 12 hours of heavy groaning. And it's kind of amazing that you've had this effect on so many people, isn't it, with this movie?
It's unbelievable. I mean, we were just talking off air. I wish we were taping, but anyway, no, this is the 15-year anniversary of the film. And it's just unbelievable. I mean, neither of us could ever have anticipated that it would have this ripple effect and this long evergreen life to it. And, it's been, I consider it my life's work. I don't know if Abby does too, right? Both of us, this was for me. I mean, my story, I was a talk show host for so long and I was an actor before that, but I really wanted, especially post 9/11, I wanted to do something that I felt would be impactful in a way that my show wasn't. Even though my show was in its way, I wanted to do something more personal. And so this is this project. And it just was so guttural and like it was just a calling in me that I wanted to explore the world of birth, primarily in the United States. And I was so impacted by my two different experiences. And Abby and I were dear friends from the vagina monologues.
There you go.
And it just has been like divine, the whole experience of making this film, putting it out, telling our stories of our own very different birth experiences, and seeing people like you 15 years later getting to have that home birth because of what you learned from the film is really, it doesn't get better than that for me.
Yeah. I really want to talk about the business of birth control today, but there are such similar themes between the two movies.
Yes.
And one of the themes is that men are in control of women's health. That seems to be the ongoing theme between the two movies, is that men are like, yeah, if you could lay in the bed and have your feet in the stirrups to give birth, it's not going to be good for you, but it's much easier for me. And then you see in the business of birth control, these men deciding that, talking to male doctors about birth control, and that seems to be a running theme here, isn't it?
It completely is. And it's funny because it's like, there's something I think that's so primal, right? Like the first time when we were making The Business of Being Born and we were deciding whether to make it, and Ricki showed me this like home movie of her giving birth to her son in the bathtub. And I'd never seen anyone really give birth. And I'm watching this footage, and she, Ricki's in the bathtub and her head is back and she's pulling this baby out. And I literally, in that moment, Luke, I thought, oh my God, this is why men are so scared of us. Like, this is it. This is it. Like, we are so fucking powerful. And I think that we are so powerful. And I think that that's why there's always been this like need to control, need to control women's bodies, control the magic, control the power, like control the uterus and the life force. And I think that birth control, it's in the words,
Right.
That's what it is. That's
I never thought
exactly
about
what
that.
it is. Yeah, because it's like taking your hormonal experience and like muting it, basically, controlling it. So, it's really, instead of women living in their natural cycles, as we are, meant to cycle, and cycling is part of our power, right? Because I think when you're ovulating, they say you have like 13 times the sort of like energy and, ideas and stamina than you do when you're not ovulating. So it's like,
oh, that's my favorite part.
Easily. When you're ovulating,
That's
you're
the best.
horny.
Oh,
Yeah.
and the breasts get fuller and bigger, and like,
yes,
it's on.
It's on.
But it's so interesting because the natural cycle that I think that the business of birth control is really promoting the education of understanding your own cycle, so that you can go, okay, well, instead of taking hormonal birth control, I just know that I shouldn't have sex around this period. But the problem is that sex is so good around that period. You know what I mean? Around the period of ovulation. But that's really the vibe, though, isn't it? I was going to get to this later, but it's really, once you realize, okay, that hormonal birth control might not be for you, the other options are really coming into an understanding of your own cycle. Is that correct?
And it's work. I mean, it takes a lot of time and patience and really understanding and educating yourself, you know. I mean, and thinking of a teenage girl who really doesn't want to spend that time learning about their bodies. You know, it's like, it's hard. It's really a commitment. But for me, I'm 54 years old. I still get a cycle, and I track my cycle now because I learned so much about my health. You know, they call it the fifth vital sign. Yeah. And so it's fascinating when you can like embrace what our bodies are able to do and not be, you know, irritated. Oh, I'm bleeding again, or whatever. Really looking at it as like, what our bodies are amazing. You know, same just like birth, having this like reverence for what our bodies are able to do.
Yeah, and I think you have to look at the cycle through an empowerment lens, not just through a procreative lens, right? So if you're looking at it just as a contraceptive tool, that's, you know, you're missing all the good stuff. And I think even if you're saying, you know, look, I think it's kind of fucked up right now because we shouldn't be living in a world where it's like hormonal birth control or tracking your cycle. Like there should be like a million options in between. There should be options for men, you know, but I do think that a lot of younger people now are finding that they can track their cycle pretty accurately. And, you know, they will have to use a condom during those 6 days, the fertile days, or, you know, maybe some of them are using other barrier methods or withdrawal methods. I think a lot of people use, although they don't speak about it, but a lot of people are using timed withdrawal.
The pull-out method has been, you know, chastised for years, but is quite effective, actually.
I know. I used it.
You know what's even more effective? Vasectomy. Vasectomy is way more effective.
True. My friend is this very, very sweet man who he's one of these incredibly nice guys who manages to have a lot of sex, and he loves sex so much. And at the age of 30, he got a vasectomy, and I just couldn't believe it. I was really just like, what? And he's like, yeah, dude, I just love having sex, and I just want to have more sex. And I was like, he was ahead of his time as far as I was concerned. I've never heard of a 30-year-old man loving sex that much and then going ahead and doing it. And I was like, that's actually a great, it should be an option given to more men. Yeah.
Well, it is now. So there's like a bunch of new companies on the market. You should talk to some of these guys on your podcast. They're really amazing, but they're pioneering this, you know, vascular, it's like a vasal occlusion procedure. So it's almost like a mini, I wouldn't even call it a vasectomy. It's like they basically put a little silicone in to block the tube. And then when you're ready to have kids, they just put in like baking soda and blast out the gel. So it's a very non-invasive procedure. And they're in, I think one of the companies I know is in like stage 3 or stage 4 clinical trials in Australia right now. So of course, Australia's, you know, doing the trials. Very feminist country, I think.
Oh, okay. I was going to say get the convicts to do it. Yeah.
That too. But no, I think that's on the horizon. Like there's a bunch of biotech coming out to do these kind of vasal occlusion procedures.
But are men really going to let like a doctor get close to them and put something in their, you know, man parts? I don't know. They have to come up with a better name than whatever that name was. Vasal inclusion.
No, they got to brand it. They got to brand it. They will. Yeah. But I don't know. But I think the thing is, like, you know, if you're doing it for your teenage boy, like I'd do it for my kid, right? So if it's a parent maybe making that decision, I don't know. I mean, I think there's so much need for gender like equity in this space that.
Well, I think it's really interesting though, because a lot of the in your documentary, women were talking about how they'd been affected by if they had acne, even as a teenager, they were given birth control, or if they had a bad period, even they were like given birth control, and it was just the one stop fix all. Oh, just give them birth control, and when people had PCOS. It was just this one-stop shop of like, give them birth control and they'll be fine, instead of getting to the root cause, which I think is a very Western medical thing. Like, it's like, oh, just cover the symptoms.
100%. Yeah. And I think like the problem is, because we've been doing that for so long, we don't have any treatments for PCOS. We don't have any treatments for endometriosis. There's no research because they've just been like popping women on the pill. So we have now this big movement, right, around like actually getting like root cause treatment for hormonal imbalances and like fibroids, PCOS, endometriosis, all of that. Because, you know, when you're on a pill and you're like just suppressing your symptoms for 10 years, 20 years, and then you go off, it's like all hell breaks loose.
Yeah.
Right. Because everything's still there and it might have even gotten worse. And then there's like all these women who are put on the pill so young that they don't even know they have those conditions because they've just never really, you know, had their own like hormonal cycle. So yeah, I think it is such a like Western thing. And I think it has to do with truly, honestly, the lack of understanding around women's bodies is appalling. Like the lack of research and the medical bias, and it's appalling. And I think that it's just, look at what's even going on right now, right? We're looking at this like menopause boom, right? Like every celebrity now has a menopause brand, because suddenly it's like all of the Gen Xers are at this menopause age, and Gen X is like, wait a minute, like we're not, you know, getting old. Like, you know, we want hormones, we want solutions. Like, what the fuck's going on? And so now it's like everyone's talking about menopause because, again, nobody knows what to do. Nobody knows what to do. Nobody knows who to go to. Nobody knows who to talk to. Nobody knows how to solve these things, because it's like this entire complex, you know, network of like women's bodies and hormones is just like totally, I feel like, unexplored.
Yeah, and that's just, and I think this gets to the heart of where I wanted to get to, was that I don't think we understand how fragile of an ecosystem hormones are. I think we just like sometimes like guys getting TRT, or, you know, women going on hormonal birth control, or it's like, do you understand how fragile of an ecosystem this is? Like, your hormonal health is your health, right? You can't just mess with it and think, oh, that'll be fine, I'll deal with it later. You need like actual good guidance throughout this whole process. I wanted to ask you how you two found this subject of birth control. I mean, every woman I know has a horror story about birth control, whether it's them or about their friend who suffered. Did you two personally suffer and then come to want to make the story because of that?
Well, Abby, you tell, because Holly sent you the book.
Yeah, I mean, I would say both Ricki and I were both on the pill for like a decade, you know,
more than 2 decades for me, and on and off. And I would switch brands. You know, my thing, it's like, I didn't put a lot of thought into it. I did think it was no big deal. I love the fact that I could control when I got my period, particularly when I went on my honeymoon and stuff. Yeah. And I would go get my pap smear every year, and they'd give me a new brand of pills because the latest, you know, they'd have them as samples in the office. So for me, it was convenient. I didn't question that, it's a different, you know, chemical makeup and it might affect me. What happened years later is my hair started shedding and falling out. And that is directly, I mean, there's a lot of factors, but one of the main factors was the fact that I was on these drugs and on, you know, fucking with my hormones. And so had I been told that, you could lose your hair from going on and off these drugs, I might have made a different choice, but I really didn't have informed consent at that time. And it was only making this movie that I put 2 and 2 together. Like, you know, it was a real awakening for, I think, both of us.
Yeah, that's exactly what Ricki said. Like, I was given a book called Sweetening the Pill by Holly Griggs Spall. And so Holly it gave us the galley of her book before it was published. And she, knew about the business of being born. And she thought this might be, something that might interest you guys in your documentary work. I read the book on a flight from New York to LA, got to Ricki's house in LA, and I was like, oh my God. I mean, my experience getting prescribed the pill, like that initial year in college when I was put on it by my doctor, was so awful. And it really took me out, and then I did manage to find a different pill that I could tolerate better. And I stayed on that. But when I read the book, I mean, holy shit, like so many epiphanies. It was like I was putting together all of these symptoms and mental things and relationship things. And I couldn't believe it. It was just like, but I had no idea. I never connected any of those things to the pill. So the book for me was like a massive epiphany. And then I just said to Ricki, I literally got off the plane and went to her house and was like, nobody wants to talk about this. I know we're going to get so much fucking hate and backlash, but I just feel a calling. Like we have to put this out there because, it's not fair. It's not fair I don't want the next 19-year-old girl like me to get put on the pill in college and like suffer what I went through.
But this is what's so funny, isn't it? You feel like you're going to get so much backlash for talking about it. Well, like, what's the other option? Just shutting up and getting on with things? Like, if you don't mind me, like, getting a little bit political here, I remember when the vaccine was given out and so many women were missing their periods or they were getting their periods late and they were told to shut up. It was told, like, just get over it. This is for the greater good. And it's just like,
that's right.
It seems to be another common theme. Like, just shut up and get on with it. And not by right-wing Republican men, by the way. Like, it's like you'd expect it from them. But this is from other, like, left-leaning women who are just like, shut up, which is crazy.
Oh, absolutely. And it's not only like, it's worse than shut up. I mean, like we actually have been accused of feeding into, anti-abortion, right-wing mentality. It's like, come on, this is a liberal critique of the pill. If you can't see that this movie is a feminist movie, I mean, you're really reaching here. And I do feel that it is very, very political. And that is really a shame because, all of the health pieces get lost and, women are left in the dark because the politics are silencing every conversation around this. And we just refuse to have that, like we just refuse to be silenced in that way. And it is a nuanced conversation. And we're not saying get rid of the pill, get rid of hormonal birth control. Nobody should take it ever. That is not what we're saying. Yeah. But I think what's frustrating, for example, let's just take the connection to anxiety and depression. Okay. I feel at this point that enough studies have been done and we've heard enough anecdotal evidence that we can conclude, yes, there is a correlation. There is definitely a correlation between, and I've seen so much research on this and still to this day, somebody will write about the movie or write about the subject and they won't even acknowledge something like that. That is not even a controversial fact anymore. They'll still say, oh, it's inconclusive. Inconclusive research has suggested that there might be. I'm like, are you kidding me? So it's so frustrating, Luke. It's really frustrating. And it does feel like we're really muzzled around this because of the politics.
It's
and
crazy
we knew
that,
we would be, honestly. I think on some level we knew we would be because when we started this film, with my talk show work, I was involved for many, many years with a group called the National Campaign to Prevent Teen Pregnancy. And they were based in Washington, D.C. I did a lot of PSAs for them. I'd show up at their once a year, powwow. And they got a blurb, like a paragraph, wasn't even one page, paragraph of my latest documentary that Abby and I were starting to work on. And they dumped me off the board with without even asking. Abby, I hear you're. So I mean, we were
Abby's peeing everybody.
I have COVID. I'm dehydrated.
Anyway, we knew in the beginning that we were going to touch some nerves, and it's just, it's just disappointing. It's disappointing because honestly, we have no agenda other than to educate and empower women like we've been doing for 15 years. That's really where we're at. We don't make any money. Like we are so in the hole. These are not money-making ventures at all. Some days I wish I had a talk show just so I can fund these things, like I did with the first film. And it's like, I don't know. It is.
And I remember when that happened to Ricki, and we had actually a talk with that organization, and they were like, well, we really don't want you to make this movie, because if you make this movie, then the women who are at risk, the low income, underprivileged, at risk women, they're going to go off these products, and we need them to stay on these products. And Ricki and I sort of countered with, well, if the products have such horrible side effects that 40 to 60% of these women are going off them anyway in the first year, you're talking about women who are at risk or poor. Why do you think that poor women can't understand how their bodies work and don't need, informed consent? And that's really what it was. It's like they really wanted to, again, it's going back to this whole subject. This is about population control. This is about public health. This is about, the people who we don't want to be having babies to not have babies.
Yes.
It's super, super political. And like, to your point, Luke, about the vaccine, the COVID vaccine, disrupting menstrual cycles. Well, finally a study came out like 2 months ago that verified that, yes, it does,
yes.
And so then everybody was like, oh, okay. But like, that's crap. Like, why do we have to wait for
and we didn't need a study.
Do you know what I mean?
We didn't need a study. Everyone was saying it anyway. Why do we need studies to show that, all of these women are saying that they've been affected by the COVID vaccine or by hormonal birth control? It's like, well, let's just wait for the studies. So it's like, what? Oh, let's just wait for the studies to show that like taking a high amount of estrogen affects your mood or can cause depression. It's like, we don't need a study. We know that that's going to affect, it's just like, it's just nonsense. You know what I think you guys should do is you should align with a better pharmaceutical drug that like aligns with the movie, and then you could become billionaires.
Point us in the right direction. Where do we go?
Yeah, it's like, how about a natural birth control like neem oil or something like that? And then, and then, and then you could actually start making some money. And then you see that would be a reason for people to go, that's their agenda. But if your agenda isn't making money, then it's not a fucking agenda.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Like, we're not Catholics. We're not conservatives. We're not making money. It's hard for people to wrap their head around. Exactly. Like, one of our headlines on one of the feminist magazines, do you remember? It was like, Ricki Lake wants you off whore pills.
No, it wants to scare you. It wants to scare you off of whore pills. Yeah.
That was a headline. That was an actual headline.
Oh my God.
Like in a feminist, blog. And it's like, why would Ricki Lake give a shit about what you're, you know what I mean? Like what is why would she be like getting into this mess for no reason? Like, putting her hand in the fire. It's like, no, because we actually believe that there needs to be empowerment and education in this area. We really believe it, and no one else is doing it.
It seems to me that this documentary just provides a third opinion. So the right wing say no birth control, the left wing say lots of birth control, and this is the third opinion that says, how about you just learn about your options? And that's the third. That's what you are. So it's no agenda. It's just like, you should figure out that there's an in-between here, not no birth control and not always on birth control. There is an in-between here, right?
Yep.
No, there is.
Same message that's in our other film, Weed the People. It's about informed choice, I mean, that's a whole film about the medicinal aspects of cannabis, and then the business of being born. I mean, there's like a theme. There's a theme and a connection to each of our projects.
But it's really, I think, this topic, like you were saying, like every woman you know, right, has a story, has a birth control like story, and most of them are nightmares. And some people not, some people are like, oh, well, I took the pill for 25 years and it worked for me, and that's great. But did you know that you should have been supplementing with folic acid? Did you know that it decreases your folate? Did you know that it drains your body of all of these really essential minerals and vitamins? Did you know while you were on it for 25 years, you could have been supplementing with, vitamins and minerals? Like there's things that it's doing to your body, even if you're not feeling the side effects. And I still feel like you still have the right to know that, you still have the right to know what it's doing, and to be able to like counter that, or, so I still think it's like always at the end of the day around informed consent and just supporting, whatever choice works for you. But it's starting these girls a lot of times at like a very, very young age, and that's what's so insidious about it, is it sort of like becomes this like rite of passage. And a lot of women are put on it before they've even established a menstrual cycle, and before they really know who they are. Right. Yes. So as you said, your hormones create your personality by interacting with the environment. So it's kind of scary if you are growing up and trying to form an identity, but you're not even experiencing yourself. I mean, not to get too meta about it, but that, that's what's freaky to me. And then these girls think that they're depressed, and so they go on an antidepressant, but nobody's ever traced it back to like, oh, but maybe it was that birth control she started at 15, 16, right?
Yeah, no, they're formative years for a reason. They're not just formative with your experiences. Your body is literally forming. And no one's really talking about that. By the way, with the deficiencies thing, there's a great resource called mytavin.com. It's mytavin.com. And you can go there and type in your whatever pharmaceutical you're taking, and it will tell you what you're then deficient in, or what that medication takes away. And so even your birth control, you can put it in mytavin.com, and it'll tell you all the things that you should be supplementing with, or what it depletes within your body. It's a really great resource for anybody listening who's interested in that. I think one of the most powerful scenes in the business of birth control is a woman at a hearing telling these pharmaceutical companies, this board, about her daughter dying. And one of the men from NuvaRing saying, I think, despite what you just said, he goes, I think that we've properly, I actually think that we've rightly, what was his words? His wording was
the label. He says, I think label.
We properly labeled this. It's like, did you just hear what she said, mate? Like, is there any reaction to what you've just heard? He goes, I understand what you've gone through. She goes, you don't understand. And he goes, well, I think we've properly labeled it. It's like, could you be more out of touch? And I think it was just so, that's what's crazy. They're just not, they're not listening. They don't care about your health. They don't care about you. They don't care about your life.
No.
They just want money.
Yep. And I think that they know that putting a black box warning on the NuvaRing will kill the sales. I mean, they know, from a business perspective, that those kind of warnings are, will kill their bottom line. And they, as we say in the film, they are willing to pay off these lawsuits and to budget for strokes and blood clots and deaths by pulmonary embolism. And that was so shocking to me when I started making the movie, because I remember thinking, but I don't understand. Like, if a product like NuvaRing was on the market and like young men were just dying, like healthy young men were dropping dead, would it be still on the market? I don't.
You mean like they are right now?
I really don't. Yeah. Like, I mean, I feel like, yeah, I feel like, I don't know. There's something about it where I feel like, again, it's this like public health, right? It's like this, like we say in the film, it's kind of like, your risk versus everybody else's benefit. So in order to have birth control available and in order to have the NuvaRing out there, they are willing to accept, a certain amount of death. And, it was, I don't know, it was shocking to me. I guess I was like very naive when I started making the movie.
Yeah. But is it for the good of the majority? Your risk for everyone else's benefit. Is it to everyone else's benefit? Because it seems to be that the majority of people who go on these experience depression or any of these other health outcomes. Isn't that right?
Yeah. But I mean, a public health benefit in terms of like, not having babies and also making sex convenient for men, right? Because it's like, that was a lot of, I think if you look in the history that we showed of the trials, it was like men invented this, women took it. When women were having these issues and brought it to the government for a big, hearing, the Nelson Pill hearings in the 70s, it was only men testifying, male doctors testifying, and, it is convenient for men, the product, like having women on these products, right? Because then women are sexually accessible 24/7 and it's convenient.
Yeah, that is another thing that blew my mind. We've known about this since the 70s. Like we've known about these issues since the 70s. And when was this documentary made? 2022?
Isn't that amazing? Right? Yeah. Right. No, it's
and we're not really allowed to talk about it. It's like, what's going on?
Yeah, I know. And I didn't like, I thought I was a feminist and I'd never heard of those hearings. I'd never heard of the Nelson Pill hearings until I was making this movie. I had no idea that feminists ever like raised health concerns about the pill. I had no idea. I thought feminists were just behind the pill 100%, because that's how I always viewed it, as a very feminist and, empowering thing.
Let's talk about some of the other health outcomes that can happen when taking the pill. We've talked about the mental impacts. There was a mention of stroke and heart attack. Anything else?
Pulmonary embolism.
Yeah. And we, I think the interesting thing is like, what I find is that, so we, interviewed and talked to like a lot of women who experience these side effects. And like, I don't know if you saw recently, what's her name?
Hailey Beiber. Hailey Beiber.
I'm like Justin Bieber's wife.
Yeah.
Hailey Beiber. Yeah. She had a mini stroke. She connected to a new birth control pill. And one of the things that she came out in this YouTube video, she was actually very articulate in this video and told the whole story. It was a real public service. And she said, I get migraines and nobody told me that I should not be on birth control pill if I'm getting migraines. It's actually a much, much higher risk for a stroke. What a simple thing, right? Why don't women know that? Like, if you're prone to migraines, that's not a safe method for you. Like, most women don't know that.
Yes.
And, so I think that connection needs to be made. There's a dad in the movie who also mentions that his daughter was getting migraines and they didn't connect it to the NuvaRing, and she also ended up dying. So I think that what we really don't know, because in the United States, nobody keeps these records, we really don't know how frequent these things are, right? So something like a blood clot, if I was 16 or 19 and starting the pill and I said, oh, there's a risk of blood clots if you smoke or if you're obese. That's kind of what you hear, right? Or over 35 or something. Mm-hmm. But you think in your head, oh, what's a blood clot? That doesn't sound very serious. You know, people don't understand, right? Like this little blood clot in your
It's like you just shake it out and it'll go away.
Yeah.
That's literally what I think.
It doesn't sound like Yeah, like nobody really understands what it is, right? And how quickly it can travel to the lungs, to the heart, and become, you know, an embolism. So it's funny because anytime there's like a post about the movie, like on social media, let's say, if you look in the comments, I swear to God, all these people are like, oh yeah, I had a blood clot when I was 16. I had a stroke. I had a blood clot. I did this. I had a pulmonary embolism. I was in the hospital. I almost died. And it's like, you're seeing all these and you're like, are these really being counted? I don't think these are being counted. Like, I don't think they're being reported. And I don't think that we have really good, clear statistics on like how often this is happening or what are the risk factors, like what would make you more likely, you know, to be one of those people, because certainly the women in our movie who had pulmonary embolisms didn't fit any of those categories. They were all younger. They were all in their 20s. None of them were smokers. None of them were obese. They were all very fit, you know, so it doesn't fall neatly, you know? And so that research isn't being done. Again, it's being like silenced, you know? And even in one like article, a kind of progressive magazine said that the movie was manipulative and irresponsible by telling the stories of those girls that died. I mean,
which it just seems like you can't, that's the one part of the movie that you can't refute is somebody's experience with their young,
exactly.
Like, it's like, that's the one part of the movie. Like you can question a doctor for whatever reason you might find, but you're going to question the parents of somebody's daughter who died. Like, what are you, Alex Jones?
Right. Exactly. Ricki, you should also mention about Karen.
I was on the fence about, I know, the woman that you brought up that speaks in front of that panel and wants her day in court to talk about her daughter to help others. You know, she was the protagonist that started when we started filming. It was her. There was a big article on her family and Erica, her daughter, who died in Vanity Fair. And that's how we found her. And she became not only like a protagonist for us, but also she brought in all the other families. They had like a little group together and she got all of them to interview and talk about their losses. She ended up pulling together a summit for all of us that we documented. So she gathered all the families, you know, a bunch of researchers. We were there to document. And we all left after that weekend together where we talked about the girls individually, and we all went home and got a box in the mail, and it was a suicide note. She had taken her life. Karen, the mother couldn't bear to be alive anymore without her daughter. And, you know, she, by passing, she helped us finish the film. She left money for us to finish the film. Wow. And I mean, yeah, like you said, like Alex Jones or what, I mean, it's like this story, you know, and Abby chose not to put it in the film because with testing, it took people off.
We had
it off the message.
We had it in the film, but it wasn't.
Sure.
She was so devastated by the fact that these companies, that Merck, it was Merck, right? Merck was the one she was fighting for to get her day in court. She didn't want to take the money in the gag order. She wanted to, you know, help other women. And, you know, it's just so tragic, this ending. And we couldn't have made this film without her story and without her help. And it's just it's like the underlying piece that makes this even more important to tell, you know?
It's kind of like that she couldn't live in a world that could be so unjust. Like that she gets her day in court to talk to these people and they just said, we think it was properly labeled, you know, and don't listen to her at all.
Yeah.
What's her full name, if you don't mind? Karen, if people want to look her up.
Langhart.
Karen Langhart. Okay.
Yeah. Langhart. It's Langhart. And her daughter is Erica with a K.
Yep.
Got it.
And she was a force. She was a force. I mean, she's the one who got the transcripts of the Nelson Pill hearings from Bernie Sanders' office. She's the one who, she was such a fighter, and she just didn't want to see this happen to another family. And I think that ultimately she took her life, like, because of what you said, Luke. It's like she was like staring into an abyss where it's like her daughter was like murdered, really. It was really, nobody was accountable. And like nobody, like, she couldn't get anything. She couldn't get any justice, like, anywhere, you know?
Yeah.
And like nobody wanted to hear the story because the story ruins birth control for everyone else, you know? Because then you're going to make all these girls scared to go on the NuvaRing, you know, because her daughter was this outlier, right? This freak thing that happened. But I mean, I think it is so important. And that's the reason we have those stories in the film, because, you know, it just shows, I think, just the way that the FDA colludes with these pharmaceutical companies. They're in a collusion, you know. The FDA is not protecting you. They are not protecting you. You have to absolutely, like, advocate for yourself. And any drug you're going to take or whatever, just Google that drug with the word controversy, you know, and like see what comes up, because it's shocking. It's kind of, you know, shocking. And other countries, I have to say, like, we interviewed a family in France where an 18-year-old girl had a very debilitating stroke on the birth control pill, Yaz. She didn't die, but, you know, France made moves to ban certain substances, you know, just like Europe does with food. Yep. They're a little bit better. And they did take certain brands off the market. And, you know, there are lower risk and higher risk pills, as we say in the movie. So, you know, why do we need the higher risk ones on? Why can't we just have the lower risk ones? Right. But like we showed that FDA hearing in the film, how they voted to keep Yaz on the market. And then it turned out that like half the committee had a connection to Bayer. So it's impossible here. You can't like separate these financial interests. And it's just like dope sick. I mean, it's
dope sick, I was going to say.
Like, yes. Exactly.
How many examples do we need exactly to not trust the FDA? You know, how much longer do we have to go on going, you know, because, you know, a year ago, if you didn't trust the FDA, you were called a conspiracy theorist. It's like, well, how many examples do you need exactly to know that the FDA doesn't care about you? You know?
Yes.
It's just wild. I'd love to talk about, briefly, Bernie Sanders. How was his office involved? You just mentioned.
Yeah, so his office apparently was able to get the transcripts of the Nelson Pill hearings, which were these hearings that were done in the 70s, looking at the safety of the film. And Bernie Sanders' office was able to make it public and to get the transcripts, to get them released to the public. So Karen Langhart had gotten us a copy of the transcripts, and the transcripts themselves are like fascinating. They're really fascinating because you can see like in the court, you know, how, like you said, we knew all of this. Like we knew all of this in the 70s.
In the 70s, yeah. Ricki, more like brother, less like other.
Are you going to have me explain it? I can't, because I butchered it once with Maria Menounos. Yes. And it is, I'm not even going to say it. I'm going to let Abby say it because I don't want to just be berated again. So no, Abby, you clear it up.
No, I want you to say it.
No, it's just, it makes sense. It's, you know, when that part of yourself is shut down, you're flatlined, that would impact choosing a partner. You know,
explain from the beginning because you guys.
I want you to because you know I told you I'm high. You do it. But I'm good at some things. I'm not so good at others.
You're so good on your edibles. When
Ricki, you're high. Abby's got COVID. You want me to explain it?
We're in our prime, and we're in our prime. I'm 54 years of age, and I've never been better. The best me I've ever been.
Love
it. Okay, so more like brother, less like other. That's a quote from the film. So basically, Ricki, this is something that Ricki loves to talk about. I don't know why she doesn't want to explain it, but it has to do with the way birth control affects your perception of pheromones. The way your pheromones, if you don't know, it's like a scent, right? So everybody gives off a scent, and in that scent is all this information about your DNA. Okay. So it's not something your conscious brain can pick up, but it's like the neuroscience of it is that you can sniff out a mate, a good mate, right? Like if you can like put your nose in their armpit, and if it smells horrible to you, that's maybe not the person you should be mating with. And if it smells sexy to you, probably you have a good histomological makeup together and you're going to produce like robust offspring. And I was
going to use the word histological. I was.
I don't even know if I said it right. Is it like histomological or But that's like, so the science of it is that when you're on hormonal birth control, that sense of smell kind of goes offline. And so and again, I'm saying this from research, research, and that was done, is that they find that like women who are on birth control are attracted to somebody who's more like a brother. They might have like more feminine features. They might feel more like familial, And then when you're not on hormonal birth control, you have more of the like cave woman, where's my mate? And you kind of looking for, a more masculine, polarized type of partner. So that's what the science like has shown with, the studies that they've done. And that is what Ricki was talking about on Maria Menounos, where it's like one of those things that we talk about in the film that people love to really knock and say, oh, that's so goopish, or that's like pseudoscience. And I think, look, it happened to me. It happened to so many women I know.
Yes.
I think it makes sense.
It's wild to think that you're in like that huge life decisions like that were sitting on this little pill that was given to you when you were young, that you used all throughout your life. And then you made these huge life decisions based on your hormones that weren't working in an optimal way. It's wild to think about that. How many people, how many bad marriages, how many, this may be inappropriate to say, but like birth defects because you were mating with the wrong person, And
also it's not even like one of the guys in the film was telling us he's a fertility doctor. Okay. And he said that he sees a lot of lesbian couples. And he said, when the lesbian couples come in to have a baby, the partner who's going to get pregnant has to usually go on the pill for a couple months because that's how they like set you up for IVF. Sure. And he said during that period, the same thing happens with lesbians, where all of a sudden you put one of them on the pill and she's not attracted to her partner anymore. And it's like this, big disruption in the relationship. And he has to explain to them, like, it's the pill. And like, as soon as you go off, it's going to come back, and don't worry. Yeah.
And you've experienced this, Abby? This coming off the pill or going on the pill has taken attraction away from your partner?
Totally. Oh my God, completely. I experienced it big time. Most women, I think, experience it. Like, you could experience it if you're naturally attracted to someone and then you go on the pill and then suddenly you're not. In my case, I met someone on the pill. And then when I went off the pill, because when you go off the pill, all of a sudden your testosterone goes back up and your libido comes back in a big way,
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what happened to me. It was like really, oh my God. Like I was totally
But you didn't put two and two together until making this film, right?
Yes, for 20 years I didn't realize. For 20 years. And also like Another thing that they don't talk about is there's like, you get this issue with like vaginal dryness. So like when I was on the pill and I was like in my 20s, I literally thought I was like, oh, I'm one of those people that has to use KY. I just got to use like tons of KY. And then it's like, no, I'm not. I'm like, actually, I'm not. I'm like the opposite of that. But I didn't know that was connected. I had no idea. Like all of these things, it's so cruel. It's all just like kept from you. And, you think it's you, and it's not.
Yeah. Ricki, have you had any personal experience?
How long? I don't remember.
Not vaginal dryness. If you want to, you can talk about that. I was going to ask you about the attraction thing. If you have,
I was married at such a young age. I was such a late bloomer. I didn't go on the pill until my early 20s, and I'm one of those people. I went off the pill when I wanted to start family planning. I went off the pill and got pregnant the first time I tried with both of my children, and I've never miscarried. So It's just, I don't know. The pill didn't, the big thing was my hair fell out. And for that, I suffered for years and years and years. I'm no longer suffering because I'm at a place of being at peace with what I got. But it tortured me. And I just, again, I go back to that initial consultation, or that initial, it wasn't even a consultation. It was my doctor's, my pap smear, that I just said, oh, sure, I'll go on the pill. Why not? And I just wish I had more information so I could have made maybe a different choice,
Yeah. Now I feel like because of social media and the internet, I feel like there are young women out there on TikTok, like people are talking more about the side effects and making jokes about, the pill killing your libido, like things like that. I feel like are more out in the open than they were like for us.
Yeah. Is there a way, is there a recommendation of how you can approach and talk to your doctor so that women can make better decisions?
Yeah, well, that's like, so what we've done now is like, so we have our film, and then we kind of created this film circle membership thing where you can have access, like lifetime access to all of our films. And then we created a series, a body literacy series called More Business of Birth Control. And we have like one whole course on there that's like how to talk to your doctor, what to say to your doctor. Like we have like a literal class that we offer because it is so complicated. And like so many women are shut down and they're just told, look, if you're not on something, you're going to get pregnant. I mean, that's what like most women are told by their practitioner. So you really have to advocate. And even something like something as simple as an IUD, right? They say that like there's a non-hormonal IUD, right? The copper coil, the copper IUD. And then there's the hormonal one, which is like the Mirena and the Skyla. If you go in and you talk about getting an IUD, you will get the hormonal one, unless you know about the non-hormonal one and you advocate for it. So it's like,
right.
It's just like, I think trying to shift the conversation with the provider from what type of hormonal birth control to hormonal versus non-hormonal. Okay, well, these are my hormonal options. Like, what are my non-hormonal options? And that's where it gets messy, right? Because then they're kind of like, oh, well, there's barrier methods. They don't really believe, I don't think so much in fertility awareness methods, so it's very tricky to have that conversation. But, we tried to create this like course and at least give people tools and ideas, of how to get there.
That sounds great. Lastly, I just want to see the kickback that you've got from this film, the criticism, anything scary, just out of interest, like any pharmaceutical company or anything like that?
We haven't had any hits put on us yet. Which I joke that like they would be after us because, with the business of being born, there was backlash initially with that too. The AMA came after us and ACOG. And with this one, it's taking on big pharma, so I don't think anything was anything scary to you, Abby? was way scarier with the business of being born because we were so young and we didn't expect. I'm America's sweetheart, for God's sakes. And I didn't expect to be attacked, you know, especially knowing where I come from and what my agenda, my non-agenda is, you know. I want to help women. I want to empower them and educate them. That's it. I don't care what they do. I don't judge anyone's choice. I just want them to make an informed one, you know.
You didn't join the Illuminati though, did you, Ricki?
No.
You didn't join. You and your mate Oprah. You didn't join.
No,
she joined.
I am not
you
in that club. I'm a burner. I'm a burner. Are you a burner, Luke? I'll bet you are.
I'd love to, but I've never gone.
No. Okay.
I've never gone either. I think
wow, you look like one, Abby.
Oh, thanks. I take that as a compliment.
It's a compliment.
I feel like we're almost like we're too little, like we're just pebbles in a pond to really raise the ire of the big pharmas. Like, also, Luke, I mean, we couldn't get distribution for this film, which has never happened to us before. So we couldn't get any of the streamers on board.
Yep.
So, you know, we've been distributing it ourselves. And I guess, you know, it's going to go up on Gaia in a couple months. That's like the only streaming platform that we it's going to be on so far. And we put it on Amazon. Like, it's on Amazon because we put it on Amazon. But I'm saying, like, when we do a lot of free screenings of the movie. So like we just did one last weekend in Australia and New Zealand. We put the movie on for free. And then we have a conversation with some naturopaths and OBGYNs. That's really amazing. So if we put this movie on for free for, let's say, 72 hours, we will have like close to 20,000 people come and register.
Yes.
So that means that it's got a lot of viral energy and a lot of people want to see it. So you have to ask, well, if we're getting 20,000 people over a weekend to register, like, why doesn't Hulu want this movie? Why doesn't Netflix want this movie? You know, so it's like, I feel like maybe we haven't gotten like some cease and desist letters, or we haven't gotten anything like scary because we're a little bit under the radar. Like, you know, we're still like in this kind of very grassroots, you know, self-distribution. We're not making a lot of money. Like Ricki said, like we're making like zero money. And so I think we're not a threat, you know, but I don't know. I think the movie's also ahead of its time. So I could see a day where it might like pick up more steam and the topic might get less polarizing, and maybe, you know, it would get picked up or get wider distribution. I don't know.
It's funny, ahead of its time. It's timely. It's timely. Like it needs to be out right now. Like, talk about hormones and fertility, the choice, consenting choice, educational consent, all that stuff. That's right now. And that's been, and we've known about it since the 70s. This isn't like ahead of time. It's right now. We need this now.
I know, you would think. And it's like, we're getting a totally different response internationally. Like Ricki and I were in London and Berlin in October, and we had like 2 sold out screenings in London. The talkback is completely different. Without the politics, without Roe v. Wade and the bullshit and the politics and the right versus left, we are actually having conversations about, okay, so what method do we use? And you know, what do we need to innovate, and how can we like create options for men? And like, we're having like totally different conversations. So the film is being sold in countries all over the world. Like we've sold it in, you know, Spain and Norway and Israel and, you know, like it's having a totally different reception than it is in the US.
Well, I think that also conversation can be had in person. That's when it can really happen. Social media conversations just can't happen. They just don't seem to be able to happen. You know, people seem to put down their ideologies when they're in person. They can they're better at it. And then social media is like, how can I make an argument in this comment section that perfectly sums up my side's argument and not actually what I believe?
Right.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. No, I know. It's so true.
Anyway, listen, it's been an absolute joy talking to you. I'm so glad that we touched on everything, including vaginal dryness. That's really where I wanted to get to.
A to Z.
Sexy. It's a sexy.
And congratulations on your incredible home birth.
It was a VBAC, right?
Did you have a VBAC? Yes. It was amazing. People did. My wife, yeah, she did. So it was, what's a VBAC is? She had first we had a cesarean, and then the second birth was a home birth.
Right, vaginal birth after cesarean. That's
right. That's right.
I had that.
Okay, wow.
I had that too.
Yeah, and I loved the kickback from posting photos of it was there's a bit of anger on there, which it's good. It's like, where do you think you've come from? I'm glad to educate you and lose 3,000 followers in the process. You know,
yeah.
It's funny, isn't it? Like talking of birth is wild like that. But how can we see all of you just mentioned, how can we see all of your movies? And
well, the easiest thing to do is you can go to thebusinessof.life. That's our main website. You can also go to like our Instagram is at Business of Birth Control. And that has like all the link trees. And then we'll do a Zaddy discount. So if your listeners go and they put in Zaddy, they'll get a 50% off.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So,
and then we're going to hit you up when we are working on the follow-up of The Business of Being Born. So we can interview you about your story.
Yes, that's a great idea. I would love to be involved in anything you guys are up to. So, okay, the business of .life. And can we follow either of you on social media? Ricki, I know that you have Instagram.
Yep.
Abby?
Just at Ricki Lake.
Perfect.
Yeah, Ricki's, and I'm at Abby Epstein XOXO.
6969.
I'm not
vaginal wetness over here.
Big squirter XOXO.
Oh, tell them about your OnlyFans account, Abby. I swear we're all on an edible right now. I swear.
Very good.
I'm not famous enough to get my own name, so you know.
What a pleasure.
You're so fun. Thank you so much for having us.
You're both a joy. It was great to talk to you. Thanks so much for coming on the Zaddy Zone.
Oh, it's our pleasure. Have a great day. Bye, guys.
You too.